Ladies and gentlemen, we have a wonderful panel discussion coming up, and our panelists and speakers have been waiting in line for a long while. This one is titled as Reimagineering Leadership, Productivity and the Workplace. And this will be very kindly moderated by the Country Manager Director, SAP Pakistan, Mr. Saqib Ahmed. Thank you so much, sir. And let me take a minute to quickly announce and introduce our wonderful panelists. We have with us Hobo Hawk, who's the Chairman of Infrazaman, Director and Co-founder, Green Guarantee Company UK. A round of applause for him. We also have in this panel Mr. Zishan Sheikh, Country Manager Pakistan and Afghanistan of IFC, the International Finance Corporation. Our next panelist, the President and the CEO of PTCL Group, Mr. Hatim Bamatraf. We have with us the President and the CEO of Faisal Bank Limited, Mr. Yusuf Hussain. In this illustrious panel, we also have the CEO of Golden Wheat for Grain Trading Limited, Mr. Malik Al-Akeli. Oh, that's a madam. Thank you very much for bringing in. Okay. So sorry for that. There is I'm so glad to have you at least in the panel, so there is some gender diversity there. Ladies and gentlemen, next up, of course, another champion and advocate of women empowerment, and of course, the Chief Executive Officer of Jazz We On, Mr. Amir Ibrahim. And last but definitely not the least, Mr. Marcus Tomea, the Managing Director and CEO of Siemens Pakistan. Once again, the CEO's dialogue is titled as Reimagineering Leadership, Productivity and the Workplace. How do we pay forward? How do we navigate through the certainty and the uncertainty? The floor is all yours, Saqib Saab.
When we talk about re-engineering overall leadership, productivity and workspace, that talks about a change. And we talk about a change. It's a constant change that is part of our lives today. As leaders, when we have to make decisions, the environments are changing every day. The overall impact of the change is being heavy on the lives of the people that we are working with. Our decision makings are very much approachable, and they need to be in hand with the global and dynamic changes that are happening all across the world, and it is not related only to the organizations. We are talking about financial changes. We are talking about the impacts of the workspaces. We are talking about the productivity, how the people can be the best run and how the best can be taken out from them. The leadership is not anymore simple. It cannot be repeated. The environment is keep on changing. And in this changing environment, we have to make sure that we get the best out of the people. And that's where we are today. And that's where we are. Our 6 panelists are for today. We have done this in different parts of the organizations that they are working with. We will be covering today the leadership styles. We'll be talking about today what is the future of leadership. We'll be talking about what is leadership in the crisis management. We'll be talking about productivity, and we'll be talking about workspace management in the current environment that we are in. So let me start my discussion with the first panelist, Amir, a known name in the overall Pakistan leadership. I will, Amir, start with you a little bit on the crisis leadership. And I will talk about, because there are so much things happening in Pakistan today. We have been passing through the currency crisis. We are passing through the overall geopolitical climate crisis. We are passing through, let me say it, a political change as well, not using the word crisis over here. Now, when we talk about in this VUCA situation that we are in, with volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, how do you see what are the impacts that a leader has to take care of it, especially in the environment that Pakistan is in today?
Thank you. Okay, crisis and leadership. So let me just at the outset talk about, because of the title, many people think that just because you're a CEO, you're a leader. So I think the first myth is that leadership and the title are two different things. You can be a leader regardless of the title, and just because you're the title doesn't necessarily mean that you're a leader. However, we go through crisis in our individual lives. We go through crisis as companies. We go through crisis as a country. And I think some of the traits of leadership become even more pronounced when you're going through a time like this. And unfortunately, where we are as a country, I think we're perpetually in some sort of a crisis. Our sector, which is a telecom sector, is also going through a crisis. So I can talk a little bit about that. I think first and foremost is doing a little bit of ruthless prioritization. So when you're in a crisis mode, you will have limited bandwidth. You always have limited energy. So you have to really ruthlessly prioritize what is it that you're going to do, and more importantly, what is it that you're not going to do. So I think that's one of the first things that becomes even more apparent. Then, at least within an internal and also perhaps external, you have to communicate a lot more frequently. And I think in all of these leadership positions now, communication becomes more and more important. You are in the world of social media. Your employees expect a lot more interaction with you. So communication, which is frequent, which is honest, which is authentic, is extremely important. It is important in all times, but I think as you go through a crisis, the communication becomes extremely important. And I would say the last thing perhaps is that you take a sense of ownership as a leader, that you don't really hide behind external factors and you take, well, this is a crisis. It's perhaps not necessarily of my owning, but I own the problem, and with your help, whoever it is that you work with, that we will come out of this crisis. So I think that's at least 2 or 3 things that come to my mind rather immediately in terms of what is expected during leadership. And it's, like I said, it's not only the biggest title in the organization which is responsible for managing a crisis. It is anybody in any situation which has got an ability to create an impact. And I think communication, like I said, I repeat, it's communication, it's ruthless prioritization, and it's taking that sense of ownership. So those would be my 3 picks.
You talked about, and I will take a little bit on that one. When you talk about communication, are there specific communication styles that we have to follow in recent times with all this social media and everything available over there, the message reaching to the right people in the right way?
I think what's becoming more apparent is where there are all these fake news and whatever else, I think what's becoming more and more important is that you have to be authentic. And that just means that you be yourself. And if you try to be something like many people try to emulate, like if you talk like a CEO or if you walk like a CEO, you're probably a fake. You're either a leader or you're not a leader. And if you're a leader, you don't need a title. So I think it's really about what are the things that come from your heart. And I always advise people, and I try to live it by myself, that just be yourself. I would rather be disliked for who I am than liked for something I'm not. So that's what the test of authenticity is.
I think very rightfully said over there, because a leader is a born natural leader. You cannot be built it in a certain way. It's something you need to communicate. It is something that comes from the heart, and you need to own it over there. Thank you very much, Ahmed. Moving to you, Marcos. You are, mashallah, now leading an organization in Pakistan for almost 2 years now. I will be talking to you a little bit on the workspace. At the time of this pandemic, many of our organizations as white-collar jobs, we all went back to our homes, started working at the digital transformation, all the things started working from home, the tools and everything. But when we come to the blue-collar industry, when we come to the factories, when we start talking about the mental health and safety of the people, when we talk about when the outputs still have to come from the factories, have we made any changes on ground for the workspace, for the blue-collar industries that we are talking about?
Saqib, thank you very much. You hit the nail on its head. Because what the healthcare workers are for society, that are factory workers for us in the industry. And if we are honest, we all have complained about the internet speed and that at home the air conditioner is not and the chair is not as good in the office. But the real heroes beside the healthcare workers are the factory workers. Blue collar have sustained the operation. We have our own factories in Karachi. They have done a marvelous job. If you ask what has changed in their workplace, most of the time, and I think they had single-digit downtime days, so they continuously throughout COVID have been at work. And now let's mirror our own fate over the last 2 years against that. I believe we really have to appreciate them more. What has changed in the workplace? Fairly little. That is actually in comparison to what has changed at the workplace for white-collar workers. Does it stay that way? No, absolutely not. There is a lot of innovation that now has been provoked to enter the blue-collar workspace factories and workshops. That starts, I mean, at health and safety systems. You typically start with that, then that would be fire alarm systems, that would be CCTV systems. And why is that beneficial to the organization? Because you are gaining a lot more data than before. The systems not only do what they are intended to do, but they are having a lot of additional data. You can suddenly control workflow. You can also detect, even before somebody enters a workshop or a factory, what's his temperature. It's an automatic recognition of a person. It's also measurement of his health status. So these technologies are now being actually launched already. And for example, we are a good example for that. The innovation is coming, but it's not as fast as in an office. We are dealing with a more hazardous environment. Things need to be more carefully planned. And this innovation actually continues. So there is a lot more that we are bringing now. We pay more attention to the needs of blue collar. We create our own culture about it. We keep them closer to us white collar workers. For example, as funny as it sounds, but we do yoga sessions, we do sports sessions with them. We create recreational areas. We also create overnight areas if they can't go home. And of course, last but not least, look, our empathy of what you mentioned as leaders, is the empathy only going as far as the white-collar workers are close to us? Are we actually improving the lives of those who save the least amount, who spend the most amount, who never saved on any liter of gasoline because they had to go every day to work? So us as leaders, I think we need to jump over the immediate surrounding of ourselves and try to do the greater good. And the greater good nowadays is help them who are left behind. They did their job all the time. They have maybe in percent received the same increases, but it always depends where the percents are counted from, right? So the divide has increased, and it's now up to us to distribute the good to where it belongs. I think there's a lot in that space. Sorry that I was a bit long.
No, thank you very much, Marcos, and that's the reality as well. Ladies and gentlemen, when we were working from home at the time of this pandemic, let's be very fair, majority of the people, when our internet was at fault, the people were still coming to fix it. When we were talking about of different works, the overall the supply chain, the things where people were going in the factories and getting the work done when we were trying to be as safe as possible. And it's very important that the workspaces should be changed for these blue-collar jobs as well to make sure that they also feel safe. And that's what we are doing in this industry as of today. Thank you very much, Marcos, for that one. Hatem, coming to you, mashallah, you have been leading organization across Middle East, let me put it this way. Your experience is very valuable in terms of different leadership styles that we are talking about. There are different leadership styles that we see. Autocratic, democratic, transformational, overall, when we say delegative, there are different of them. Now, you have been working as a leader in Pakistan in an organization like PTCL. How do you see the leadership style that works the best in the Pakistan environment, which has given you the best results, and also which has given the best results for the employees and the team as well?
So thank you, Sakib. In my point of view, I think that a leadership should have all of the above attributes that you have mentioned. A great leader should exercise sometimes to be transformational, sometimes delegative, sometimes it should be a dictatorate that just decide on decisions and move on and push the organization to move forward. I think the question is that the ability of the leader where to apply a specific management style according to the situation of the business and according to the situation of the objective and the overall strategy. So for example, if you are managing a company that are saturated, so there is no much growth, your products are commoditized, there is no much differentiation between you and the competition, and etc. So you don't expect really that this will result in huge growth. If you just maintain maybe your revenue stream, you would be lucky if you, and some of the actually organization at that stage, we noticed that they actually dip. So in that, you need a leader that will be transformational. You need somebody that he will come and would be creative. And like what James talked about, that you step out of your comfort zone and you start, you wear the golden shoes and you take risk in order to transform that organization and turn it around and try to be differentiator, try to build that kind of momentum in the organization. So you wouldn't expect at this stage or that situation that you will bring somebody who is, for example, delegative or democratic. They will not be able to resolve the problem of the company. And at the same time, the same leader in some cases, when it comes to taking difficult decisions about the business. Sometimes, unfortunately, you need probably to do layoffs. Sometimes you need to shut down a specific product. So there are certain decisions that has to be also taken, and somebody should own it. So the sense of the accountability also, it's very important. And I think the last thing is the speed and the time to market. It's also should be a characteristic in the leader to build an organization that are agile and flexible and can respond to market dynamics very quickly. So again, you need a specific style of a leader that will be able to. So it's really a combination of a number of attributes that will describe a leader, I think the main thing is the capability and the ability of the leader to exercise the specific style of management according to the business situation.
Fairly said, Hatim, and the overall, when the organizations are in different phases and you need to have these attributes working, especially that what is the stage of the organization and what is the vision and the output that a certain organization needs. Very well said on that front. Thank you very much. Moving on to you, Buhok, and I will be talking about a little bit of workspace challenge, and that is the challenge that we all are facing today. Let's be very fair, in initial times when we used to apply for a certain job, we knew that this is the area, the people are required within that space, they have to come to the office, and that's the opportunities are limited to a certain area, to a certain group of people, and we will be selected between that group of people. Now the world is completely changed. Now it's not necessary the person has to be in that city, even in that country. It has to be another subcontinent, and you can still get a certain output out of that one as well. And that's the reality of today. We are not competing anymore with the people that we can see and feel. We are talking about and competing with the whole world. Can there be any rules and regulations defined around how the talent can be restored, and also the opportunities can be defined in a certain way which can remain to a certain geographical area? What is the way forward the world is going on?
Thank you. To Imagineer the future, I think let's re-engineer the present, right? All the rules and regulations and laws. Malaysia's Company Act, where I'm from, was 1965, written in 1965, rewritten and amended in 2014. That second version is already 8 years old, all right? So I want you all to remember one word from my response today. It's the word SEAT, S-E-A-T, right? So as you go back and look at your office, plan for next year, ask yourself, why is this company seated here? Whether incorporation-wise, whether office-wise, and this country is classic. Lahore, Islamabad, and Karachi, you kind of have to make a decision, right? And I always ask people I meet, why is your office here in Lahore? So there's usually some legacy, but reason for that. But that isn't good enough, because you're planning for next year and the future. So if you need to revisit your seat, it is wise to do so. And if you are comfortable with where you are today, keep it so. But Do this exercise so that you prepare yourself for the future. And another reason why I believe seat is important is about your people, all right? People say I chair a company in Pakistan from Malaysia, where I live, caring for my 82-year-old mother who lives with dementia. The company is sponsored by the UK government through its Singapore vehicle and with Pakistan joint ventures and staff here. So the world is an oyster, or your oyster, and we always look at it from a positive perspective, but I would ask you to look at it from your talent base. We always say people are our best assets, right? And you look at your base, they are all ripe to be taken from you, and they may resign and go somewhere else if your rules do not fit them. So gone are the days we set the rules and everybody apply. We have 200 or 2,000 CVs and we choose one. The people who will not stay are probably the people who will not be the talent you want to keep. Because keeping talent at your seat will be a key challenge. So now I think the way forward is to look at your company seats and the seats that are in your office. And they may very well be at their homes as opposed to the office you decided that are closest to the boss's home, right? And we'll talk about, I think you have a second question, we'll talk about that as key considerations as where you're going to be seated moving forward. So the world is really borderless now, and the rules and the laws are archaic. The people who survive are the people who understand the differences very well and take advantage of it.
Thank you very much. And I think that's a key question today. On one side, sitting on a certain city or a country, we feel that our opportunities are being taken by the people outside. But on the other side, just think about that we have the opportunity all across the world to be there and present and take those opportunities as well. And we have to see it in this way. There's a change in the whole world in this productivity and workspace, and it is there. We cannot resist it. We need to be part of that one. And that's important for us, the people in Pakistan, to understand that challenge. And very, very rightfully explained on that very front as well.
Yeah, and if I may add, I mean, as a talent base here, you're going to be a net beneficiary, really, to serve the world.
Absolutely. I think with the 220 million plus population, this is something, the trump card that we carry, but we need to make it more effective, and we need to have more talented people out over there. Malik, over to you over here. Let me ask you about the future of leadership. Let me define it in this way. As something in the future, do you see leaders thinking about disruption, digital transformations, talking about where the future will lie for them? Or do you see leaders saying, oh, that is enough disruption happening. We have to go back to our roots. Enough has been done, and we have failed. Let's go back to the roots over there. And most importantly, with all these communication media tools that we are talking about, how these all social networking tools leaders can use to reach out to the people in the right context, with the right set of information, and with the right data. What's the future of leadership ahead?
So first, I feel so honored for being here in Pakistan, coming all the way from Jordan. So firstly, I just want to celebrate and emphasize the fascinating, vital, and massive role of all the leaders who are sitting here. Sometimes we forget how great things we are doing on a daily basis. So, and especially for those who stood up for their human values, goals, and continue to lead in the times of crisis and uncertainties. So I have 13 years experience in bulk commodities, grains, petroleum. My company covers 18% of Jordan national consumption of wheat. My focus is on food security and sustainable agriculture. What I'm passionate about is digitalization of commodity trading, innovation, blockchain, governance, transparency, and building the sustainable, healthy business environment. To be an effective leader in such a times of uncertainty and crisis, you have to be agile and to have you align your strategies, your mission and vision of the new reality which have been changing. We've been we cannot talk about leadership without talking about the wrecking ball of the geopolitical unrest, about the conflict, about the war, Ukraine-Russian war, without the COVID. And then we need to reorganize and reorient our mindset that how we can sustain and be more comprehensive. Now we understand that we are not living alone. And in 2018, I went in an architect expedition. I was the first Jordanian crossing 80 degrees North Pole. And in this expedition, I saw and I witnessed a true manifestation of humanity, that peace, harmony is possible, because we were in an expedition to sort out climate change, and we realized without one-sided media, without we were one amplified voice against anything that's threatening our existence, and we identified that our true enemy is climate change, because a hurricane, a flood will not distinguish between a Pakistani or Jordanian. We'll just all of us, die. So I think now with what's happening, the methods of leadership are questioned, and we cannot afford any more leadership glitches, because some of them are so costly.
Fair enough. I think you rightfully pointed out, even sitting in a head of a telco or sitting in a head of a production company that we are talking about over here, nobody thought that the Ukraine-Russia war will impact us to that way that we are thinking about. Nobody thought that these crises has to be taken care by the leaders of today in all different industries that we are talking about there.
Something, just allow me to add, something I learned that you always have to make people care by the right approach. So if I'll tell you that in 5 years you'll not find food on your table because of climate change, then the conversation will change. And it's the same language, we can use it with the war, that the prices double up, then the conversation and we start caring. So I think as leaders, it's about the approach we talk with our team to make them actually care.
Absolutely, and I think as James mentioned, it's about vision, it's about thinking ahead, it's about understanding how many of us actually thought that climate change will be a problem of our generation. Let's be very fair, we always thought it's something in the future, and here we are facing all these challenges of today. So thank you very much, Malik, for bringing that topic up. Zishan, coming over to you over there, and we will be talking about productivity with you. And in majority of the organizations, the human resource asset is becoming much more important. The organizations are getting much more into gross margins and everything, and they want to take the best out of their people. They want to have 100% productivity from the resources that they carry. As part of the international firm, do you see different methods that is being utilized internationally to increase the productivity of the people in the organization, and what are the challenges that has been faced in this regard?
Thank you, Saqib. Thank you, Saqib. Let me first begin by thanking you and the organizers for the opportunity to be here. So I've been in Pakistan about 2.5 months. I head the International Finance Corporation, which is a private sector focused arm of the World Bank Group. And the question you ask about productivity and how to focus on enhancing productivity is something that we as an institution spend a lot of time and energy thinking about. We are a global organization. We have membership of 186 countries globally, and in many of these countries we have local offices. We employ about 4,500 people. About 75% of the operational staff of IFC is based in country offices. So we're headquartered in Washington, D.C., but most of the staff we have is actually in country offices. And in Pakistan and Afghanistan, the two countries that I'm responsible for, we have presence, particularly in Pakistan at the moment, significant presence on the ground. So this challenge around productivity, how to sustain it, how to enhance it, how to homogenize it across a global forum is something we spend a lot of energy thinking about. And there's two broad buckets, at least to my mind, that we think about. One element of productivity is how an organization like ours, a large multinational, organizes itself in terms of decision making, organizes itself in terms of sort of information flow, information sharing. Like many large organizations, bureaucracy is something that is a challenge for institutions like ours. So there's an element around productivity that is linked to internal workings of large institutions. And then the other element is around the working of people at the front line. So in our case, staff that are dealing on program delivery, that are doing the investments and the advisory work that we do. So as an institution, we try and tackle each of these slightly differently. If I start with the first bucket, which is around organizing ourselves. So IFC has been around for about 60, 65 years. And over that period, we've experimented from being very centralized in the way we decide things, to being very devolved in our decision making, to being centralized again, and to now being very, very devolved. So like I said, 75% of our operational staff is based in region, and most of the decision making that happens in IFC now happens in the region. And then for us, that has been a key lesson of productivity. I think if decisions are to be made, they have to be timely, as I think one of the other speakers spoke early. To have well-informed, timely decisions, you need devolution of decision-making, you need devolution of authority, and that is something that is encouraged within IFC. Of course, we're headquartered in Washington, so we still have links there, and decisions, certain decisions have to be made at that level, but a lot of the decisions are made in the region, a lot of the initiatives are pushed in the region, and the real culture that we're trying to instill in the organization is one about taking ownership of the decisions you take, and that is something that is, I would say, a work in progress. It's something we continue to strive with, but for us is a fundamental prerequisite of enhancing productivity, that for large organizations with global presence, you have to have devolution of authority, you have to have ownership of decision making, and sort of this ability or this encouragement to take certain risks. I think perhaps one of the earlier speakers also mentioned this. Taking risks for any organization that needs to grow is fundamental. And in the business that I am in my institution, particularly in a country like Pakistan, where we today have about $1.7 billion in invested portfolio, we want to try and double that in the next 3 or 4 years. That requires us to take risks, and that is something which, again, is key for enhancing productivity. The second part of it, which is around individuals and folks at the front line, I think there a lot of, at least my own view on this, is a lot of it is linked to the culture and the motivation of people you have at the front line. As an institution, we try and encourage people at the front line to, again, be positively motivated, and we can talk a little about what motivates sort of certainly the newer generation that is coming now and becoming part of our teams. But I think it's fair to say that the rationale or the motivations for the newer staff is different to perhaps what it was 50 years ago. So we have to cater for that. We have to allow and motivate people in a positive way. We have to empower them to be able to make decisions, take risks, and this is something as an institution we're very focused on. And maybe two cross-cutting things, and I'm sorry, I know I'm going over, but that are fundamental across all areas of productivity. One is adequate investment in IT and infrastructure, and this is something I think we've all learned through the COVID experience, and it's something we spend a lot of time and energy on. And the second piece, which I think, I hope future panels will benefit from, also is an increased diversity of participation, both from a gender perspective as well as diversity of ideas. The more we can encourage that, I think the better, the more new idea generation there will be, and in our view, that will be a net positive on productivity. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zishan. And I think you rightfully highlighted diversity, decision making at the right time, highlighting the risks, risk-taking, and at the end of the day, it's very important to see how we can add and enhance the productivity of the people. That's very important for us as a nation. So thank you very much for bringing this up. Amir, coming back to you, and let me say, coming back to crisis leadership back again, topic coming back again. When as a leader you are in a certain situation, and as Jazz, you have been seeing this different situations for a while, how you remain calm, how you are able to tell the people and knowing what can be the option and the result of this crisis, encouraging, motivating people, and remaining calm in that whole process. It's not easy.
Can I ask you a question? Why are you asking all the crisis questions to me? Is it because I represent Jazz or telecom or me personally? Okay. You know, even in crisis, you're still going to be human. And if you try to continue being human, I think you can emit a sense of calm to those around you. And while I did talk about authenticity in the earlier question, I think this is one of those areas where you, to a certain extent, have to give hope where you yourself perhaps are a bit wanting on hope. So I think how you come across both your words and your body language become extremely important during crisis. And it's not just what your employees hear, it's also what they feel. And they will be able to sense whether what they're feeling is correct. So we've heard a lot about walk the talk kind of a thing, but during crisis, having a demeanor which is calming in a way, which is hopeful, which is still optimistic, regardless of the nature of the crisis, I think has a good calming effect on those around you. And you know, paradoxically, it energizes them. If you think about it very pragmatically speaking, you want to overcome the crisis, and you need the best resources and the best positive energy to be on your side. And that can only come if the team or the people who are involved in it are not paralyzed by the crisis. So while the situation can be intense, it shouldn't be tense. Non-verbal communication does take a huge role. I think, as most of you would know over here, that we only communicate about 7 to 10% from our words. A lot of what we communicate is through our actions, it's through our body language. And I think it's really important that we emit that aura of as much calm as you can while being kind of realistic and authentic about it. You can't just say, well, yeah, don't worry about it, because it will come across as completely fake. Yeah? The second thing is certainly in elements of crisis, it's okay to show a little bit of vulnerability as a human being, that you yourself are, to a certain extent, not familiar with what the final outcome would be. We're going through what I call as a telecom emergency right now, so I'm having a number of town halls with my own organization. Some of the things that we've gone through as a country, fuel prices, interest rate increases, as well as electricity rates have a compound impact on us as an organization. We have what I call 15,000 factories, which are called towers. They need electricity, they need batteries, they need fuel as a backup thing. So all of the negative impact that you have seen, and most of us have observed in our personal lives, have had a catastrophic impact on our business. We're going to swing from being a profitable company to being an unprofitable company, as well as an unprofitable industry. So that, to me, is a silent crisis that we're going through. But again, by communicating frequently, openly, honestly, you also give them that sense of calm that we collectively can work with the government, we can work amongst ourselves to overcome this thing. And like I said, the last element about vulnerability, when we were going through COVID, we doubled down on the communication. And I think at a personal level, I think I was amongst the first employees who did have COVID. And when I was in one of my town halls, fortunately it was all virtual, showing that, like, you've gone through this thing perhaps gives a little bit of a more calming feeling to others, that, like, a leader is not on some non-vulnerable pedestal. He or she breathes the same air, also bleeds the same way. And if you can connect with the people during this time, I think it brings in a lot of calm.
I think connecting with the people, you rightfully pointed out over there, connecting in the way, the leaders are also humans. They feel the same thing. They get COVID. They also have the same vulnerability that any other employee has, but remaining calm and seeing the body language of the leader, how he handles the crisis, also give you a lot of motivation. And I think absolutely right that this is one way. And next, in any of the next panel discussions, I'm not going to ask the crisis questions to you as well. Moving on to you, Marcos, and since I have also got this chit of the time, so I will try to give you 3, maximum of 4 minutes over there on this one. I've seen in recent times, Siemens has also gone a little bit change overall on the workspace specifically. How it has impacted your brand image and how it has helped you in transforming your business. So what is the impact of the workspace change on the brand and on the transformation of the business?
Thank you. Saqib, I was very active in that field when I was still in the UAE. And at that time, we wanted to optimize the workspace in terms of having 6 or 8 people at one desk, the typical model of WeWork. And nowadays, I think 6 or 8 at one desk won't play. But the same applications have been developed and are further used to individualize your workspace. So you have to offer more. Ultimately, we want to get that the people come back. There's a higher reluctancy for people, white collar, to come back to office because the home is just so much more cozy and convenient. But if we don't achieve that, then we lose the connection. So we have to distinguish between communication and connection. What the battle right now is about is to re-establish the connection amongst our workforce. So it is vital that they come back. Why would they come back? You have to offer a workspace that is really lucrative, that gives them actually a perfect environment, and they get their things done, but it needs to be the marketplace for connection. So what we try to achieve now, and that forms our brand image. Of course, we also sell different gadgets, tools, and software for it, but our brand image, we need to be a company that they wanna waste their 40 hours a week for. They want to be with us, and it will be a battle of workspace attractiveness. It has to be a social place. It has to be a place for networking, collaboration, and to reconnect. The connect is really the current battle we are in. And I mean, I don't need to speak about technological solutions, but 4G and 5G are definitely helping us to get all and every data, how often a workspace is used, how close people are coming to each other. We have many new data points nowadays, and there will be a lot of analysis, statistics, and apps developed from it. But the real battle is, I give you now another one. The next level of workspace, not only all these tools and gadgets, but if I offer you the best air at that workspace, nobody thinks about it, right? But if I really tell you the air is just perfect, and I give you even a higher oxygen content, and when you are at work, you not only get tired, you rejuvenate. That's the next level of making a workspace attractive, right? And there's a lot to go. Innovation will never stop. Thank you.
I think that's something that I remember, and although Hatim is next, but I can tell you, I worked as an AE for the PTCL account for a long time, and I remember the time when there were always these wooden doors out over there, and it was very difficult to reach to the people and see the people. And just by turning those doors into the glass doors, I've seen such a big change in the organization where you can see across and just say hi to each other, and the body language, everything, and the leadership styles, so that overall the workspace changes have an impact overall on the output and the brand of the company as well. So very, very rightfully pointed out over there. Hatim, coming to you, and that is again coming to on the leadership styles. When we talk about leader is talking about the vision of the future, the hard realities of today, and his experiences of the past. All these three things together, he decides what to do next, and with a complete humbleness in his own personality. That's one of the key criteria of leadership that we look in any of the leaders. Now, how this leadership is important, especially for a company which is working across different countries, which has different nationalities, which has different cultures working on, and different time zones, and we need to have the desired results out of that as a leader, and working across and taking care of all these human aspects as well. Yeah. How can we do that which can manage all the stakeholders in parallel?
This is really a great question. If there is one thing that I would say about the corporates in Pakistan, because I am now have stayed for almost a year in Pakistan, and I've seen a lot of different also organizations and different industries. The major difference between where I come from Dubai and Pakistan, the major difference is the diversity and the multicultural environment within the organization. It's pretty much here, most of the organization, of course, the local ones, mainly dominated by the locals. So you really don't have that big challenge when it comes to multinational. But when you say multinational and multicultural, give you an example. I joined a company some time ago in Dubai, and it was at the startup phase. It was a telecommunication also company. And the minute that I walk into that company, I realize how this is going to be very difficult and complex to communicate and to work in that kind of environment, because I was not used to. I came from Ittisalat, which was again pretty much dominated by one sort of culture. And then when I went to that company, it was a mixture between different people and different culture from all over the world. So we had locals, we had Europeans, we had Southeast Asians, we had Americans, we had even South Americans. There were about 150 nationalities that used to work, in that company. And the funny thing, I'll just give you one example of how it's very difficult to manage that kind of, diversity and diversified cultures. So there was, the CHRO of that company was telling me about a story that there was one guy, a young guy, that he used to come with his hair combed as a spiky, the spiky style. This was it was a fashion at some time. And then the CHRO thought that this is inappropriate to the workspace. How can you come and show up and your hair is combed as spiky? This is not a party. I mean, this is so he went to them and said that, listen, you are not allowed really to use that style, so you better comb your hair. The guy resigned immediately. He felt offended that why a company will tell me how to comb my hair, how to dress, and how. This is how difficult it was in terms of setting up an environment that is inclusive of all of those, different cultures. So add to the characteristic that we spoke about in question number 1, you have to add even more skills when it comes to multicultural and a large organization and multi-countries also. So you have to be patient, you have to be inclusive. Communication is a very powerful tool. Probably you need to use it even more oftenly in such kind of cases. So there are certain attributes that has to be added to the leader in order to manage the overall situation, especially with that multicultural environment.
Thank you very much, Hatem. Your incident reminded me of an incident just happened last week. So my son was here from USA, and he was doing an internship in one of the good companies over here. And he finished his internship. He was supposed to go back to USA, and he was supposed to give the laptop back and also give the feedback to the person who was reporting to. And I was going outside the home, and I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to return I said, you are wearing shorts. You can't go to he said, why I can't go in the shorts? Why you are still an old style guy who thinks I cannot go into a shorts and return my laptop to the company that I just worked with? So I totally understand the viewpoint that you are bringing in over here. Thank you very much. Over there, okay, over to you, Buhok, and I will turn the connection back to the workspace with you. And you have 3.5 minutes each now left. I have been patted on the back now again. So we are talking about work from home. We are much more comfortable around working from home in the environment. We feel comfortable. How are the organization taking care of the physical and mental health of the employees? On one side, they are saying, yes, this is okay with us. And then we are also not ready for it in different social impacts as well. And the secondly over there is there at the human resource departments of the companies needs to do something more for the employees working at home to make their lives better in any aspect. How this change is impacting the world right away.
Yeah, I'm probably the least able to answer this question because I don't have an office, so I work exclusively from home. But the reality, leading to what you were saying about your son and his shorts and the spiky hair, right? Rules need to change for talent, right? Because rules probably are archaic. When I interview people, I ask them, tell me about yourselves. And then they struggle to tell me about themselves. They want to regurgitate their CV. And I say, no, tell me where you grew up. Because I hire people based on the enthusiasm to learn and their values. Values being what their parents taught them about what's right and wrong. Just on two things. The rest we can deal with, right? And when you get these type of people, and you got the right people, you throw out all your rules. People like offices because there are a lot of office rules. There are no work from home rules because the rule at home is determined by usually the wife or your mother or your father, right? So to my mind, we need to move to a state where surely we need to design some rules, but rules fit each employee. So the reason why I asked about staff is, oh, I have 3 kids. So when I ask these personal questions, it's not that I'm filtering the person's fit for my job. I'm trying to determine if my job can fit this person. And what I can do with the rules of my office to allow this person to function at her optimal. And maybe she cannot work at home, it's too noisy, and she's 4 hours away of commute. So I'll look for a co-working space near her place, right? So the rules we set for ourselves are actually self-serving from our perspective up, as leaders down, but we never look at each employee from their perspective, right? Some may come from a broken home, some have just went through a divorce, some have kids to deal with of challenges, right? But if you understand each person's home criteria and conditions, you can then actually fit your jobs to the talent and to them. And you can retain them, and I tell you, you will retain them for life, right? Which I like to speak about part-time work. A lot of women in Malaysia, they work, great careers. My wife was one of them. And when the kids came, we had a debate. Should I quit? And I said, yeah, I should quit because you're getting paid more. And she said, no, the daughters will be disastrous with you, right? Part-time work needs to be redefined because as a caregiver now, I'm 24/7 with my elderly mother because she needs me at any time's notice. But I'm not needed all the time, so I can have time to work, but I cannot commit to any particular time. So my COB, my close of business, could be 12 midnight, but I can still deliver work that day, right? So the old definition of part-time is morning to afternoon and then you go home, afternoon to night and then you go home. That doesn't really work as a solution. The solution, if you give people, the right people you hire with the right values, and then you say you need to do this, in your time, I guarantee you they will deliver if they are given the optimal conditions based on their own individual circumstances. So HR departments need to work harder to understand every single staff you have, what circumstances they have, and how you can tweak your rules, actually tweak rules for them.
I think you just explained it in the best possible way, how we can tweak the rules to get the best output for the employee over there syncing to your environment. I again quote back to a very interesting example when you were talking about it. 7 years back when there was no COVID and anything, I was working for a company who had no office over here, and I hired one guy who was also working from home. We did a great job. After 10 months, he came one day in a very angry mode and he said, "Sorry sir, I am resigning." I said, "We are doing something great. Why you are resigning?" He said, "Look, in my home, I don't have an office. I work from the drawing room. The maid every day at 9 a.m. cleans the room, and every day, despite my telling, my internet connection is disturbed. My calls get disrupted. My wife expects at 1 p.m. I will go and get the roti from the bazaar as well from him. Despite my telling my 6 months, this is my working hours, this was not acceptable. And yes, I cannot work from home. And that's the point is not working from home. The point is giving the employee the right environment so that we can get the best output from that one. That can be an office, that can be a home, that can be any other mobile office that we talk about. So thank you very much for explaining.
For some people, the office is the place to work because it's a respite from the challenges of home. Right?
Absolutely. Malik, directly coming to you, 3 minutes, and then it says, what is the leaders of the future has to take care, what that is not being taken care by the leaders of today?
Wow. So because we are now so fragile globally, I could think of three takeaways. The first one is find your local heroes, the role models. It should be localized. We need to find our own local heroes. The second one is, and they should, and we're talking about the future of leaders, so we're talking about youth, how to empower them, what kind of knowledge and soft skills and the laser-focused knowledge that they have to be ready in a multidimensional landscape. The second one I was always telling people is please, please, please leave your toxic ego at the door, because if you don't have this open mindset to learn and to admit your mistakes, then you will die out. And this is, ego can destroy nations. And the third one, which is in a VUCAD world, which is volatile, uncertainty, complex, ambiguous, and digital, to survive, we need to think of 4 key areas for leadership. The first one is leadership, which is practicing how you are becoming the role model, creating the leaders, and make sure that your team having the same shared vision and mission. And the second one is strategy. And when I say strategy, it means that when you have to assess and you have to imagine, apply your shared vision and purpose and work with your team and try to translate this strategy into action, and be ready again to realign your strategy to the new normal or a new reality, I'll call it. And the third one, the people and organization culture, I think we talked about that. The last one is technology, which is very, very important. Thank you.
Feedback and listening is incredibly important, and I will be very short in my answer, but I'll share with you one anecdote from which I learned quite a bit, and I carry it with me. So 2 years ago, we were sent on a training course to learn how to communicate across generations. It was called Communicating Across Generations. And it was 2 days, and it basically looked at how the mode, but more importantly, the need to communicate across the 3 or 4 stratas of generations. So from the boomers to the Generation X, to the millennials, to the Generation Z, not only has the mode changed, but more importantly, the need has changed. And the biggest single takeaway from those 2 days was that the need of the newer generation, in particular the millennials and Generation Z, is incredibly high when it comes to feedback and this feeling of being listened to. And their motivation to do what they do is very different to sort of what their parents and grandparents may have had. And 50 years ago, the main motivation for working was job security and money. Now, of course, money is a factor, but job satisfaction, being listened to, having a voice, having flexibility is incredibly important. So I think, for me, a key takeaway, and I think a good practice for all leaders, is to definitely learn to listen and to actively listen, to take on feedback. There's a famous quote by an American writer called Adam Smith, which says that, good listening is not just about talking less, it's actually about active listening. So taking on board what you are listening and then finding a way to communicate what you can do about it, and where you can't do anything about it, communicating that too. So just to be very brief in the response, it's very, very important to listen and to listen actively and take feedback. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zishan. And Aswar, we exactly are on the dot of 60 minutes. I can tell you, I have moderated many discussions, but the kind of response in terms of the leadership and knowledge that was shared today was really amazing. So thank you very much for all the panelists about that one. Leadership, workspace, and productivity will remain the talk of the town as we'll move forward. This is an ongoing discussion which keep on changing, and what we have talked today, even if we are talking about it a year after, I can tell you there will be some more dimensions and some more discussion and some more new challenges that has to be taken care, and that the leaders will be enabling themselves for them as well. So thank you very much, team. Over to you, back to Sidra.
Thank you, Saqib Sahab. That was indeed, very insightful. Everybody had a lot to offer, and I'm sure these conversations will continue over the course of the day. May I take this opportunity to invite once again Mr. Mohammad Asfar Ehsan, the founder of Nutshell Group, Mr. Ali Akhai, the chairman of the Martin Dow Group, and the chief operating officer of Nutshell Group, Ms. Rabia Ahmed, to please join us up on stage. We'd be giving away these books as a token of our appreciation. As we said, this is titled as Pakistan's Beauty and Splendor. Ladies and gentlemen, may I also request Mr. Mujib Zahoor, the Managing Director of S&P Global Pakistan, to please join us up on stage to give away the first set of these books, please. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mujib Zahoor, Managing Director, S&P Global Pakistan. First and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to present this book to our worthy speaker, CEO and board member of Fine Hygienic Holding. Please welcome Mr. James Michael Lafferty. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, is our CEO Dialogue panel. Please welcome Mr. Hubu Hawk, the chairman of Infrazamin, director and co-founder, Green Guarantee Company, UK. Please welcome Mr. Zishan Sheikh, Country Manager, Pakistan and Afghanistan for IFC, International Finance Corporation. Please welcome Mr. Hatem Bamatraf, the President and CEO of the PTCL Group. Thank you, Mr. Hatem, and thank you, Mr. Mujib Zahoor, Managing Director, S&P Global Pakistan, for giving away the first set of awards. Thank you, sir. Next up, may I take this opportunity to invite Dr. Amjad Waheed, the CEO of NBP Funds. Thank you for being with us to give away the next set of books to our worthy panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the President and CEO of Faisal Bank Limited, Mr. Yusuf Hussain. Oops, sorry. Next up, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the CEO of Golden Wheat for Grain Trading Limited, Ms. Malik Al-Akeli. May I now invite the Chief Executive Officer of Jazz Beyond, Mr. Amir Ibrahim. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Marcus Tomea, the Managing Director and CEO of Siemens Pakistan. Last but definitely not the least, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Country Managing Director, SAP Pakistan, and also our moderator for this panel, Mr. Saqib Ahmed. May I request all our panelists and speakers to please come together for a group photograph. May I also request Mr. Mujib Zahoor to please join us for this picture. May I also request Mr. James Michael Lefetti to please join us up on stage for the photograph.